Welcome everyone to Investors Gallery. So we're in the office that I built. The art gallery is on the other side of the wall. I might as well get used to saying it like that because I don't think I'm gonna ever move over there. But the reason why I created this space is to bring people like you into my world and our world, Randy, the speaker as well. So you guys can meet influential investors with a lot of money under management, a lot of skills, a lot of experience, and different experts, different fund managers, and people that you just would not normally have the opportunity to speak to. So thank you, everyone. I have not yet counted how many podcast platforms we're on. I think it's 15 or something like that. So thank you, everyone who's listening. I just saw that somebody in Brussels and some people in Russia are now listening. So that's really cool, really interesting. My name is Pressley, and I am half of Dimensional Capital Partners here in Houston. We're a syndication and soon to be technically a fund manager. We're launching a real estate fund, and we like real estate stuff. So I have who's now, I'm going to call him a good friend because he spoke at my panel at my first event. Randy, I'm not going to try to say your last name. I'll leave that honor to you. Tell us about yourself, who you are, and what you're doing.
Well, Pressley, thanks first of all for being on your show tonight, and I consider it a privilege to be considered a friend. Yes, our acquaintances has been fairly short but productive, and I've enjoyed it. So, to the audience, Randy Langenderfer. I live in Houston, Texas, as well, and I guess I wear a lot of hats, like a lot of people. Today I'm employed. I have a full-time job, and I'm in the medical center as an administrator for an large academic medical center here in the Houston area. I'm a dad of 4. I'm a husband, and I even got several grandchildren. My wife always says I never talk about the personal side, so I got to get that out there to make her happy. And on the business side, my passion is really these days, Pressley, as you kind of know, is real estate, commercial real estate, and more specifically, the multifamily space. I got my feet wet in about 2010 or so in the single family space. So I was a hard money lender with my brother-in-law at the time. I lived in Cleveland, Ohio. And we were hard money lenders with a group out of South Florida putting deals together. And we didn't pound nails and that stuff, but we gave them money. We purchased an asset. We looked at rehab budget, and we then went about and loaned them the money to make all the repairs. And that worked very well until I moved to Houston, and I just then got into multifamily and realized at the time, after attending one of the large national meetup groups or educational arms, that this was the place for me, and so here I am today.
What caused you to pivot from doing hard money to multifamily?
Yeah, so when I came to Houston, I came for business purposes, and I really got excited about the 4th largest metro area in the U.S. You know, I figured there has to be a lot of opportunity for doing what I was doing, which is hard money lending at the time. And what made me switch was I had down here for 6 months before my family moved down, living in a small apartment, and I didn't have anything to do other than go to every meetup there was and real estate session there was. So I literally went to every meetup you can think of, or educational group, in the greater Houston area. I drove all around town, got really interested in it. And it just, the switch came for me when I attended a session and heard about non-recourse debt. So as you know, I can buy a multi-million-dollar asset, and I can do it without any real of my own risk capital other than what I've put into the deal. So what that means to your listeners is that it's a non-recourse loan. So in the very extreme event that everything were to go south, the bank or the lender would take back the asset, and I'd lose my investment. But they couldn't come after me personally for my personal assets, my car, my home, investment accounts, et cetera, et cetera. And so at my season of life, that was just huge to think that that was a real aha moment for me. And then the concept of syndication coming together for me, and realizing that using my money and other people's money to pull down deals much bigger than I could ever afford on my own. And it was that aha moment that said, this is where I want to spend my time.
So when you switched over into multifamily, did you pull the original groups that you were working with from Florida to help syndicate or join in?
No, they were pretty specialized, and just they were the rehabbers. They were not in a position to really get into the syndication world at that time. But I made a lot of new friends that, Lifestyles Unlimited here in Houston, and then I was there for a short period of time, and then I joined the Sumrock Group out of Dallas for about 3 years, and really boosted my education through them. Built a team. Didn't do my first real syndication until late 2018, and today I'm in Rod Khleif's group as a coach and part of his mastermind as well. So I've seen a couple different big groups, and there's something to be gained from each of them. A lot of great networking.
Said a couple big names there, sir.
Well, they're all good groups, and there's other ones out there too. I mean, for your listening audience, depending on what I talk to students on the East Coast, there's Michael Blanc over there, and Jake and Gino are on the East Coast, eastern side of the U.S. as well. So there's a plenty full of opportunities for your listeners if they want to. And then, the other side is there's great podcasts, and there's great like this one. My wife, when we get in the car, my wife asked me, can we please not listen to a real estate podcast? Just because.
That means you're always feeding yourself, though.
Yeah. I mean, for when you enjoy it, it's like, yeah, there's always something to be learned. And yes, absolutely. So I listen to a lot of podcasts that weren't around when I first got started, and there's meetups and there's podcasts like this. It's just, the opportunities are plentiful if one wants to invest their time and energy to learn.
Yep, it is. You can learn probably 95% of what you need to learn from podcasts and YouTube videos and books. Now, 𝘄𝘄𝘄 has done a really good, everybody has a lot of good content out there. David Lindahl, like it's a lot of really great individuals. I started with 𝘄𝘄𝘄 before I found Lindahl, though. So you say you started your first deal was in 2018. Tell us about that. How did that go?
Well, my first GP deal was in 2018. So I came to Houston. I actually started as a passive investor is the way I branched into multifamily. I wasn't ready I didn't have the confidence. And so I'm a finance guy by day and by education. My training is in a CPA and MBA and that stuff. So I'm pretty risk adverse, as you'd say. So I dipped my toes in the passive investor world, and I said, I'm not gonna invest the big money that some of these educational groups wanted to. I was kind of stubborn. So I said, I'm going to learn at my own pace and find sponsors to go alongside with. So I started in 2014 as a passive investor and never really pulled the trigger as an active or general partner until 2018. And that was as a result of just hanging out at these meetups and hang out with other like-minded individuals and a common interest. You find people that you like and in same stage of life and same season of life and same risk tolerances, and you partner up and put a bunch of money on the line and you pray it all works.
Right. Did you get the returns that the group targeted when in your first LP deal?
The first LP deal?
The first LP deal, yeah.
Oh, Pressley, I can talk for another hour on this one, but the short answer is no. So this is one that I'll give you the 60-second overview. Is we bought it in 2014 with a sponsor I know, liked, and trusted, knew him very well. The asset was in Port Arthur, Texas, 250 doors. And it was only about 70% occupied because it was going to be it had been rehabilitated by a developer. And so the business plan was simply just to lease it up to 90% and refinance it and live happily ever after and make our money. So 18 months into it, we refinanced it. We got the occupancy up and we refinanced. I got 60% of my money back in 18 months. And I was pumping my chest thinking I was a pretty smart guy. And then we had a fraud.
Oh.
by the property manager. And then we had a flood, Hurricane Harvey.
Mm.
And then we had a fire where 3 kids died in the property,
Oh,
tragically, very
wow.
tragically.
Yeah.
And then we sold it, I think in late 19, just before the pandemic, just the start of the pandemic, late 19, early 20, just before the pandemic started.
Okay.
And we got all of our capital back. So
Okay.
I tell people I have never lost any money.
Right.
I
You're
haven't.
not lying.
I'm not lying. And so I also tell people that my average returns as a passive investor over the last 8 years is averaging 160%.
Mm.
So that's with a zero in it too.
Right.
So
That's a lot considering that the first zero.
yeah, considering there's a zero in there, that is a lot. And so that just tells you that this is a profitable space if you're patient. So that first one, I didn't get any money back. We were in it for 6 years. But other ones like my first general partnership in Beaumont, Texas, we had challenges and operating issues, et cetera, but we sold it 21 months in and doubled the investor's money.
Mm.
I was tickled pink.
That's amazing. How much was your first raise, and was it difficult, or tell me about that?
Yeah, they're always difficult, right? And when you're it's whether your first raise or your 10th raise. But for us, I think we had to raise $1.5 million, $1.3 million, $1.5 million, someplace in that range. I think the total deal was like $6.5 million buy at the time. We did something everybody told me not to do. We bought a 139 unit that had a flat roof and chiller boiler system.
Oh, wow.
Everybody said don't do it, and they were right.
Yeah.
But I was anxious to do my first deal. So we had all kinds of problems with that, but and I won't go into that. But we'd raise, I think it was $1.5 million. I think I raised about 650 at that time, and it's just, for me, capital raising is there's these all, and I'm looking at all the courses out there today and all the mentors and however tricks there is to raise money. But for me, it's really just old-fashioned grinding, calling people, talking to them, making appointments, getting connected with them however you can, staying connected with them however you can. And it is time consuming, as you know.
Yes. It
is time consuming. And but done it 4 other times since then, and I enjoy it. I like it. It's kind of where I focus a lot of my energies today. I focus my energies on, raising capital, finding investors, and finding deals. Kind of, those are the 2 most important things we do today: is finding deals, working with joint ventures, either on my own or with joint venture partners, and finding investors. And when you start to think about it, of your circle, your sphere of influence. So, I said, somebody coached me early on, your sphere of influence, Randy. So he said, draw a circle on a piece of paper. Okay. So he said, and then draw a little circle up the top. So that's where you work, all the people you employed with. Another small circle on the bigger circle is, your friends and family. Another circle is the city of where you live. For me, it's another one is the Houston Medical Center. And you start thinking of all those connections you have. The other one is on LinkedIn, all the professional groups I'm affiliated with from my day job. And you start to draw those little circles around the bigger circle, and you see the different areas of which you can mine potential investors from. And that's really what I've spent a lot of my time today. So for example, I live in Missouri City. So how can I pull down a list from people from Missouri City on LinkedIn or Facebook? I use LinkedIn. I'm focused on LinkedIn. Pull down a list of people that have a VP or senior VP title in their description. It's kind of what my theory is. And then try to make a connection with them and develop a relationship. And so it doesn't just happen right in 6 days. It's a long progression. Yeah. It's at least a 6-month, 9-month lead time for that to really come through, to get on your mailing list and have what you'd consider, somebody they know, like, and trust. And those are just a couple small examples. But yeah. So
I have a question about the roof. How did senior debt deal with you having a flat roof?
well, I guess they didn't mind too much because that was part of our business plan, was to replace a bunch of them.
Okay.
And, you know, and they had the old asphalt flat roofs, which they're prone to leak and they're just terrible. And so we were going to put on the newer TPO roofs, the white ones that reflect the sunlight and, you know, are much more energy efficient. And so the reality is, though, even back then, prices went up from the time we closed to when we started to do it, and we weren't able to do as many as we wanted to do. And I got another story. And we had a fire on that property as well, and so we were dealing with that as well, and changing property management companies. And so I tell people, Pressley, I got my honorary PhD degree in property management on that deal, but
Wow.
from the School of Hard Knocks.
Almost every podcast I hear the raise is difficult, and I got thrown in the fire. Who was I speaking to last week? I was talking to 𝘄𝘄𝘄𝘁.
Yeah,
He
great guy.
says, I got thrown in the deep end of the water, and then every time I asked for a life raft, they would throw another 25-pound. So yeah, he had an issue too, where he learned, you know, trial by fire, learned the hard way, and you got thrown in it and had to sink or swim.
Well, and for me, it was a matter of where, you know, failure wasn't an option. And I just had investors, friends and family in the deal that I really wanted to be able to look at across the Thanksgiving table and not have them cursing me.
Yeah.
So that was highly motivating to me, put it that way. And we had some help from the market too. So I didn't, yeah. We had some help from the market. So it's all good.
What I'm taking is, if you want to make sure your deal is successful, borrow money from your mom.
She'll love you unconditionally.
Right.
Your dad won't. Your dad will whip you. But
okay, so your dad, borrow money from your dad and your uncle.
Find a rich relative. Find a rich relative.
So at the panel, you were speaking that you're getting into a deal now. Were you guys able to close on that deal?
I actually closed on two. So I was, you know, you talk about capital raising. I was doing two capital raises simultaneously in the last month.
How? Okay, go into that. How? Because a lot of people have difficulty doing one capital raise, and you were doing two.
I was doing two simultaneously, and so it's like you said, and this was coming in. So I started one. We ended up in the end of June. The other one ended up in the end of July, and so. The good of it is I was able to talk to investors and say, hey, I have, you know, that's this way. And so the first product was Greenville, South Carolina, 132 units built in 1997. Beautiful asset, great market. It's part of a fund. A lot of people had a hard time getting used to a fund, and then at least in my investor club, trying to understand the implications of a fund, et cetera. And the second asset was in Tucson, Arizona. It was 199 units that was built in 1965. So it was an older asset, but had a lot of potential, and still does. And we're excited about them. So we actually closed on both of them. And just all I can say, the only way I did it was, you know, it's typical tools. It's mass emailing, it's grinding, it's calling, faxing. I mean, texting, making appointments. I didn't raise as much as I thought I was going to raise, but that's okay. You know, we're still part of the deals, and we're looking forward to it. I put a bunch of my own money into it. I always do that whenever I'm raising. I want to make sure that investors know I'm coming alongside of them. I think that's really important. And when I'm an passive investor, I ask the sponsor, they always say they're putting their own money in it, but I said, are you putting your own money in it besides the acquisition fee? So a lot of sponsors will roll in their acquisition fee, and they'll count that as that investment. And I want to see them have some of their own skin beyond that. And so on both those deals, I always put my own money in, just to answer that question in the affirmative. So
that's very honorable.
Yeah, and I just it goes back to that I think the relationship I want to have with my investors and just show them that I'm eating what I'm a professor. I'm talking, I'm investing in the same vein. And so I think it's important. Sooner or later, I might run out of money. I probably will.
But when it comes back, it's gonna come back.
It will come back. And at least then I'll say in July and August, the hurdle for my investors was interest rates and then the fund. Some of them were just coming on and getting used to a fund concept, and this was the first asset into a fund. So yeah, there are challenges, and I think with money tightening, the interest rate and stuff, people are, I just said, people are skittish. Investors are skittish to invest right now. And again, that's where I come back to say, look, on the one product, I broke my own. I told investors, I said, look, I kind of broke one of my own personal principles, which is I would never sign personally on a loan. And on the 𝙄𝙣 product, I signed personally on the loan. So I'm at risk. I got skin in the game, as we say.
A lot of skin.
How
big is the 𝙄𝙣 property?
It's 199 units. It was a $37 million buy, a $13 million raise.
Okay.
$13 million, yeah. So we had a pref player in there, and I think we raised 6, myself and my other partners.
Wow, that's a nice. So the rest was just from the one individual?
Yeah.
Was it a 1031?
I don't think so. I think it was a foreign investor that just came in, and relationship that my partner had for a long period of time, and you stroked a big check when you can write a $7 million check. So
yeah, that's really nice. That's really
it also
nice.
shows the commitment too, right? That somebody else thinks highly of your deal, they're going to put that kind of money in it. So it also helps selling the deal. But so now they we thought the raise was difficult. Now the fund begins. Now we got to make them work, right? It's the operational side of it. We tend to be deal makers, and we tend to be chasing the deals and raising money, but then the hard work comes of property management. So in my mind, in the joint venture relationships I've entered, Pressley, that's kind of my key element, and why I broke into these two is because my partners each had great experience in those submarkets. And so, it wasn't the first time I was going, it was the first time Randy was going to that market, but I was partnering with somebody who had experience in those markets, in both Greenville and 𝙄𝙗. And they had property management companies, and they had experience very close in the submarket, which I think goes a long way too for passive investors to understand and ask the question, who the property management company is, what's their experience, what's their relationship with you. They may be a big name, but if you got A-class property and they generally do C-class assets, you ought to ask them questions, or vice versa. Maybe they do A-class and you got a C-class asset, but
because they do not work well together.
No, and we buy these assets for millions of dollars, and you basically have a 40, 50, maybe $60,000 a year employee that's running the show day to day on site, and a property manager, on-site property manager. And that's not anything to say. You got to help them out. You got to be there and give them the direction and the business plan and support with resources and support with direction, and make sure they know how much they're appreciated.
Yep, because we care just a little bit more than they do. And we need to make sure we transfer that loving and care to them, so they care just as much as we do.
And it's got to be one of the most thankless jobs, dealing with tenants. I did it once in my life. I had a duplex I owned at one point in my career, and it's got to be a thankless job.
I grew up dealing with tenants.
Did you?
And collecting rent and Section 8, yes. So the world knows the story, whoever listens to the podcast, but my grandparents owned a 13 unit and a 50 unit. And my dad had, I really don't know what the number is. I know it was decent, maybe 20 units. off and on. I remember we had an 8 or a 10 unit at one time. But a lot of single families and flips and stuff like that. But yeah, we had a lot of times where we had a lot of tenants in place. I think most of them were Section 8. So yeah, I was there. So I started working when I was about 6 or 7. So a
Wow.
lot of times my dad would just send me, or we would pull up together because I wasn't driving yet, obviously. And he would just send me in there and tell me, okay, go replace the drywall and paint in such and such room. Or I remember when I was 16, my stepmom decided to take over the house next door to her mom, which they own, but they never renovated. And I replaced all the copper pipes in the entire house by myself at 16.
Wow.
So
You're
yeah,
sweating joints at 16. That's impressive.
well, I started when I was 7. So
So would your daddy send you up to the door to collect the rent at 7, realizing they'd never beat up a 7-year-old?
no, I would go with them. Because it was in Detroit.
Oh my,
So
yeah.
yeah, grown men would be sometimes scared to collect rent. My uncle actually got killed like that. He had some kind of dispute with one of the tenants, and the tenant came downstairs and shot him, and that was all she wrote.
Oh
So
my.
yeah, yep. So we ended up getting rid of that building, and then my dad that was the 50 unit, and then my dad took over the 13 unit for a while until it just became too much of a headache, and then kind of transitioned just into solely construction. But yes, long story short, I know the pains of collecting rent and changing toilets and water heaters and all the other fun projects that come along with rental properties.
I have experience doing that on my own primary residences over the years, but I have no desire to do it today.
Yeah, it's definitely different. So you
No.
are very successful as an investor and a syndicator, but you still work at your corporate job. So tell us why.
So yeah, I'm in about 1,100 doors today as a general partner, and over the last 8 years, I've been in a total of over 4,000 as an LP. And so why do I still work? I work my day job because I really can, and I still enjoy it. I don't know that I'm going to do this forever, but I can. And I think real estate, there's a real difference of opinion. People say to really progress, you gotta be full time. So my personal aspiration is not to be another Joe Fairless. And I really respect Joe. He's built a beautiful company and highly profitable. And there's many others like Joe, but I don't really have the desire to be that big. I desire just to, if I can do a couple of deals a year and keep that going for multiple years, I'll be just fine. I don't want to have 20 employees. I've got a VA today and 2 VAs, I'll say, one doing administrative task and another doing the first blush of underwriting for me. It's a University of Houston grad student, and he does that. And so that's about all I want. And I'm happy as a pig in mud. So
A very simple life.
I guess maybe it's because some of that is age. I'm older too, so I don't really like. Again, I'm just picking on Joe. There's many of them, Brad Sumrocks and
Yeah.
Rod Khalif, and many of them that are just wildly successful. Got thousands of doors as a general partner. I'm just at my season of life. I just don't want to build that big company, because I've done all the organizational, and that's just a whole new level. I've done that organizational and the building and breaking down and tearing apart on the corporate side, buying and divesting and re-engineering, and you can have a great lifestyle developing a passive income. I have a very high net worth friend, and I've gotten him in all 5 of my projects now. And so now I was telling him, I said, now you can begin to see the advantage of having a small portfolio of this. And this is the guy that can he can buy most of the properties outright that I invest in, but he chooses not to because he doesn't want the headache. And I've tried to tell him. So I talked to a lot of investors today. I focus on the new people, trying to help them get started in the profession because so many people have built into me, Pressley. And the other ones I try to talk to is a lot of people that are seasoned in life, executives that have high paying jobs. And I try to explain to them and help them understand the value of having real estate as a line item in your portfolio, and what the advantages of that. So I said with my investment background, I always talk about my current employer has a $2 billion endowment portfolio, you know, and it has, and I know our chief investment officer really well, and we talk to him fairly frequently, and talks about, you know, our asset allocation, which is what all people talk about in the finance world. What's your asset allocation? How many stocks, bonds, whatever. So my employer today actually has, over the last couple of years, called out real estate as a line item within the asset allocation. So there's stocks, bonds, alternative investments, and real estate. So, and we have anywhere from 8 to 12% of $2 billion in real estate today.
Wow.
So that, in my corporate tenure, that's a big switch to have real estate called out as a line item on the asset allocation model. And I just think that's indicative to show really the passive nature of it and the protection, the asset protection against it. Why do all the foreigners come to the US and buy up our real estate? Because it's a safe investment for them. It's generally not going to lose money over a period of time. High net worth people ought to think about having a line item beyond their primary residence, you know, primary. So I always tell people, yeah, you can go out and buy a REIT on the New York Stock Exchange, you know, a real estate investment trust. You can do that, but you're going to pay a lot of fees, and you're not going to get the real benefits of a private placement memorandum offering.
Yep, it diminishes your returns real quick.
Much better returns, and you're going to pay a lot less in overhead too.
What is your stopping point, and is the stopping point, do you think is going to be for your day job or for real estate?
No, it's certainly going to be for my day job. My day job, I'm reaching that tender age where I can probably do this anytime I want. So I don't know if it's 6 weeks or 6 years, but it's probably closer to years and early, you know, single digit years than it is long run. I tell people at work I have more behind me than in front of me because I'm really enjoying the real estate, and that's where I want to spend my time. So the next time I get honked off or they get honked off at me, maybe it'll be a different story. But right now, I'm just enjoying talking to guys like you in the evening, Pressley, and coming to your meetup.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. What has changed? It appears that for your personal income, outside of the real estate investment, that you've done pretty well. How has real estate investing changed that?
Well, it's put me in a different tax bracket, I can tell you that. So what it has allowed me to do, you know, for people starting out, and they always say, everybody says, you know, I have a family, I still have a family, but there's a lot of people that my wife was we had a priority. My wife and I, stay-at-home mom throughout our marriage, taking care of the family, and that's what we both agreed on. We wanted to do it. People want to go to work, that's great, but for us, so that put a different kind of responsibility on me as the primary income earner to make sure we had home base covered. And maybe that's part of the reason I'm still doing it, is because I want that safety net. But what it's afforded for me is I don't take any money from my day job to put into real estate. It's a self-feeding machine that, you know, passive income, GP income earned, and I'm just trying to really step up my game here in the next 6-12 months. I have a goal of trying to find, you know, doubling, if not tripling, my investor database of contacts. And so I'm very engaged in that. And I've been doing this for 8 years. I've hired a mentor, somebody to help me do that, to meet that goal. and I'm listening to every podcast just like somebody else. Every meetup I can go to where it's not, I want to go to meetups today that aren't real estate.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go to the financial advisor one or the CPA
Yep.
ones or lawyer ones or wherever I can find another meetup. And I want to be the only syndicator in the room.
We think so much alike.
Yeah. I want to be the only syndicator in the room if I can, versus going to a place where I'm one of 20 syndicators.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
those
we
are
all
plentiful.
go to the same ones.
Yep. Yep. That's a very true statement. But breaking that, transitioning that is a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
But it takes time. It's doable, but it just takes time, right? And so that's the other encouragement to your audience. Take the long view on everything, whether you've been doing this for 6 weeks or 10 years, and you want to find the next $50 million project or the first $5 million project. This is a very fragmented industry, and there's always room for one more.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to spend the time, educate yourself, build networks. As somebody told me, who we both know is very successful, they said, Randy, we don't do anything other than we just follow the rule book, what others have done before us.
Mm-hmm.
Educate ourselves, you learn how to underwrite, you build your team, find accountants, or lenders and brokers, start getting your name out there, talking to friends and family. That first time, I don't know if you remember the first time you talked to Pressley, somebody about asking him to put $50,000 in a deal or whatever you were asking him to put in a deal.
I'm kind of known for that in my family. It's normally like, what do you want now?
Yeah, they see you coming now and say, let's sit at the other table.
Since I was 16, they saw me coming. But I was born into an entrepreneur family, so it came with the territory.
Yeah, but I'm betting on those conversations now that you've had success and you've had a track record come a whole lot easier. And they're not, they don't see Pressley and they don't see Randy as the snot-nosed kid that he was when he was 6 years old, or the rebellious teenager that I was anyhow. I won't speak for you, but they see you as a mature adult who's got a drive and got a passion for something. And I think most people respect that drive and the passion. Mm-hmm. They may not still want to write a check, but they respect it. And they, over a period of time, next time they have some money, they'll think about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So.
Where do so as syndicators, we have different slots where our deals fall in. Sometimes it's using software, sometimes it's brokers, sometimes it's an actually good wholesaler who's actually doing the work and not daisy chaining off a broker. Where do most of your good deals come from?
I would really say right now it's joint venture partners. It's like the Tucson and I had tried to get into Phoenix before the pandemic. I had gone over and talked to brokers and property managers and made several exploratory trips there. And I remember them basically just telling me, Randy, you're from out of town, you don't own here in Phoenix, this area, you're going to have to overpay for your first couple of deals.
Oh, wow.
One broker just flat out told me that. And I had been studying the Carolinas and the Southeast for several times. So when, relationships that I had with people, I just made it known that I wanted to joint venture or JV. And, when you put your name out there, you want to do funds, you probably went out and talked to a lot of people that had funds and picked their brains. And then you become as smart as anybody else doing funds. And I became instantly, reputable in the Carolinas, in the Southeast, and in the Phoenix market, because now I own there. Somebody else found the deals, and I just came alongside and put up EMD money and KP money and et cetera, et cetera. So that I would say that's where I found my recent success. But I will go back to first of the year, I'm going to start underwriting like an idiot again and start going after some. I want to focus on Houston and San Antonio.
You're a brave man. Houston, which is still an amazing it's untapped, but it's not untapped. Everyone knows Houston is an amazing place and it has a lot of growth. But I still like to consider it untapped because the values overall are very there must not be enough caffeine in this juice. Unrealized. When you compare it to Austin or parts of Dallas, I think Houston has a lot of growth potential still left. But man, the cap rate compressions that we've had from late 2019 to just recently,
insane.
It was crazy. And so I have a development now. We have actually two developments that are, if I didn't want to not have sleep, I decided to do two developments, and we stopped focusing on trying to buy stabilized because I was like, this property is not worth this. And after someone would do the deals, now we're seeing the deals fall apart or being retraded or the gambit of other issues that they're having because they're overpaying. So yeah, Houston, San Antonio, I think is a really good place to put down some roots because it's a beautiful city and I think it's underpriced just like Houston is, if not more.
Yeah, and are you building in Houston then?
Yeah, North Houston. Mm-hmm.
And so I need to pick your brain sometime off camera about that one. I'd love to hear more about that one. That's and you're absolutely right. I mean, there's a lot of people that have been, when you can develop something for, I don't know, what are you gonna develop something for today? 150, 170 a door, and you got to pay, 130 or 140 for a Class C property today. I get it. It's worth it to just build new if you can find the land and get it developed and stuff. So different risk profile though, right, on the build side.
Very risk profile and well, the overall no, because we're probably looking 30 months overall to stabilization. And then that's just getting it stable. That's just, initial lease up. And then that's not into the actual performing of the property. So the time frame is way different with developing. And yeah, it's getting the land at the right price and the right area. And, we're in Texas, so it's always another open space next to it. But yeah, it's a very, very different risk profile because now you're dealing with land and land return, and then the property is a totally different separate entity. So it's fun.
Is it 30 months you're saying from shovel in the ground to lease up?
Yeah,
that's pretty quick actually.
36 is the average.
Yeah, I can see that. I was thinking 30 months was pretty aggressive, but if you can do it, you can do it.
Yeah, it's 36 is the average. So we'll see.
Well, and that's a different investor profile too. You got to have a lot more money up front to buy the land, to make the improvements before you put one shovel in the ground, unless it's already improved. Yeah, but you get those development fees that can be very handsome.
Yep, we were talking to one of our development partners today about the development fees, and we'll talk. We'll talk. It's an interesting.
I'm writing it down to follow up with you.
It's slightly different than stabilized. We know what stabilized looks like, and we have a history for stabilized. We don't necessarily have a history, when you build. So it's fun.
There you go.
So
I'm assuming you have a different team there. You have a different team for development than you do stabilized.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah. Not to mention it, a totally different team. Yeah,
I would think so.
Totally different team. We have a lot of different teams because we have a team for our Michigan development as well, and that team is totally different as well. So yeah, it's a process, and it's always fun connecting personalities, you know, making sure everybody kind of vibes with each other. And
Where are you
so,
building in Michigan?
Flint.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a
good.
long story behind. And I'm still fighting every inch of the way. I'm like, come on, guys, Flint. But it's an amazing opportunity there, and we're being given an opportunity to rebuild and rebrand the city. So we're really excited about this. It's not a lot of times where you get a city that's actually, you know, known before something bad, you know, because Flint was a sister city to Detroit. So it's not as popular as Detroit, but it's not, you know, a city just in the middle of Oklahoma that nobody's ever heard of before. But to be given an opportunity to go and do some really great things of a spot that is that big, it's exciting.
Well,
Scary.
congrats.
Yeah,
I
it's
look
very
forward
scary.
to staying in touch.
Me
Hearing how
too.
that goes.
Me too. I want to know how it goes as well. So you are you're one of the most experienced investors. I've had maybe 3 that have experience pre 2018. What is some words of wisdom that you would like to give to our current audience and our future
Okay.
podcast audience?
I think that's I don't know what that makes me, either old or naive or out something, but I would say a couple things. You're in it for the long haul, right? These are long-term investments, so get used to that. I mean, you just mentioned there's 36 months from shoveling the ground to lease up, and so in between there's a whole lot of work, but the fruits of the labor are really going to be found 36 months in. So take the long view. The other thing I would say is be a lifelong learner, educate yourself. So, you know, I've been doing this for 8 years. I'm still hiring a mentor to do capital raising and learn more about that. I think I have a solid on raised on 5 different deals, but I want to get better. And so how can I get better? You hire somebody, or you find somebody that's done it, and you talk, and you know, you did the same thing on development. Start talking to people who've developed. So be in it for the long haul, educate yourself, and persistence. I mean, I was this first LP deal, I said I got a zero return after 6 years, but persistence. And I was calling the sponsor in that deal. How can I help you, man? You need me to go out to the property? What can I do? Can I go out and look at records for, you know, missed dealings or whatever as a finance guy? And you know, rather than I guess to summarize that, be an active passive investor. Ask questions, and if the sponsors don't be a nag, and don't nickel and penny them to death, but ask questions, because most of them don't mind as long as it's done in the right vein and you know, not in a timely fashion. So persistence, educate yourself, and patience over the long haul.
True words of wisdom, I would definitely say. Okay, and I'm going to unmute everyone. And for my amazing people, returning people, thank you. I love you guys. Who has questions? We know how it goes. Who has questions or comments for Randy?
How are you, Pressley?
How are you? Thanks for coming
Good.
back.
Yes, sure. You always add value. We know that. Okay, just wanted to ask you, Randy, would he be available if I ever want to ask him something? Is that the type of guy that would have time?
I don't know, Laura, you're asking an awful lot there. So I'm trying to make light of it. The short answer is, so I tell people, yes, there's been a lot of people that have built into my career, Lori, and I'm not, you know, I can't give you unlimited time because I got a day job.
No,
but
not unlimited. Not, of course not. That's why I'm asking the question, because I wanted to know, 5 or 10 minutes. It's not for right now. I'm not there
Sure.
yet. But
Look, it's all about friends and teamwork. And so, like I said, there's been so many people that have built into my real estate career that the unequivocal answer is yes. I'd happy to talk to you. I
right.
can put, and
Yeah,
my
if it
website's got a
works, if
Calendly
it
on there
works.
and stuff. Yeah,
Okay. I appreciate that, Randy. And thank you so much for your time today.
sure. Just as long as you keep the questions simple.
Yep, I get it.
Any other questions or comments?
I couldn't have made it that simple. There's got to be some questions there.
In the beginning, the first couple weeks, I would get a lot of questions for the interviewee, and then it kind of tapered off. I don't know if all the questions got answered in the first couple months. All right, well, I'm not going to
For
postpone.
me, it's more that I was late, and so I don't want to ask a question. It's already been addressed.
Hi, Angel.
I just look foolish. Hey, Pressley.
Feel free, Angel. Feel free.
Well,
I don't
it's
know if
more. So I guess we've got 3 or 4 LOIs out, and I was just talking to someone that basically chastised me for, we are seriously considering bank debt. And yes, it's recourse and we don't care. And this person really came at me about it. Would you, or do you consider recourse debt when you're going after a property?
No, I wouldn't. I mentioned, I did mention earlier that I kind of broke one of my own principles in the last in the recent acquisition I did, is I signed on a note. But that's just me, Angel. That doesn't mean it doesn't mean it's bad for you. I would say one of the reasons I got into it was because of the non-recourse aspect of multifamily. It's the reason I liked it so much. And I said I kind of violated my own rule recently of signing on a loan and as recourse. And that was a big, bold step of mine, but that's my investment strategy. It doesn't mean it has to work for you. And whoever chastises you, I would only, we can't go into all the details, but just make sure you're informed, that you know the risk. If you're willing to accept those risks, I said, I don't know if you're around when I said my first general partnership, I did against the advice of a really good mentor. It was 132 units with flat roof and chiller boiler system. And I remember the guy looked at me and said, Randy, don't do it. Don't do it. It's a headache. It's not worth the blah, blah, blah. Well, we ended up doubling the investor's money after 21 months. So it was a lot of work. He was right. And recourse debt has a lot of risk. If you're comfortable with it, and you're willing to work it, make sure it's successful, go for it.
Angel, how big is the debt? Is it that it's not large enough to be non-recourse?
Oh no, one of them's like 20 million.
I mean,
No, it's plenty.
Multifamily?
It's plenty big. Yeah, it's multifamily. The issue is that we're in a very small market. And especially this far into the year, a lot of times the funds for very small markets are just gone and the bucket's empty.
Mm. Is it in your hometown?
Yeah, it's in my hometown. So,
okay.
So we're looking at probably something more along the lines of like 60-65% LTV, just because of where it's located. But
So
if
why does the lender why is the lender requesting recourse?
No,
you're not going agency or?
So we chased agency on our last deal and it almost cost us the deal. So we kind of vowed to never chase agency again.
Okay.
I don't know that that's the wisest choice. But it was just really, really hard. And so my sister-in-law and her husband are expats, and they're about to have triplets going into college. And so they need the DTI hit. And so they want recourse, and they would be GPs in on the deal. So it's one of those kind of things where we're just we can get better interest rates. The terms aren't as great because it's a shorter term loan, but it checks a lot of boxes for us and for my sister-in-law and her husband.
Is it a regional bank that's a lender?
We're looking just at all bank debt.
Okay.
So we've got a regional commercial guy that we could probably try and talk to, but we've already had to educate them on what a syndication even is.
Oh, wow. Have you talked to a mortgage broker? I mean,
We've
Okay.
talked to a couple of different people that are we've talked to like some people over at Old Capital. We've talked to some people with some of the other brokerages like
Sure.
Eastern Union, and so we've talked to people. What's that other one? I can't even think. Scott Rosenstock, Meridian.
Meridian.
So I mean, we've talked to several people. It's just that nobody really knows. It's hard to quote things in this current environment. And so really until we have the deal under contract and really until we close, nobody can really give us any for sure's.
Are you Texas based?
We are.
Okay.
We're in Wichita Falls, Texas. So we're about
Okay.
maybe 2 hours to the left of the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Okay.
So
And is this your first property or your 10th property or?
we've been in residential 20 years, but nobody counts that. But this would be it would be, depending on where the LOIs fall, it would be like our second or third deal.
Okay. You couldn't execute on all, or could you execute on all three of them if they all hit, the LOIs hit?
We'd figure it out.
That's okay. Oh, that's okay.
We shouldn't have been able to close the first one. So now I feel pretty confident that we can make any kind of miracle happen.
Well, between your husband and your other friend, yeah, you guys. So Randy Angel actually drove all the way from Wichita Falls to, she was the speaker last month or this month. So
Nice. I
and
did see
she's
that.
connected me. She connected me with a lot of people in like 5 minutes. So yeah, if anybody can get it done, Angel can. Angel, I think, knows more people than anybody else I know. And Randy, you know, we're all super connectors, and so that's saying something.
Well, then I want to get to know Angel.
You definitely want to get to know Angel. Angel knows everybody. Angel was is friends with Joe.
Fearless. Nice.
Well, he's our coach.
Okay.
Well, pay for a friendship. You know,
It's kind of like a fraternity or a sorority. I mean, it was
It
like
really is.
I was telling somebody today. We were on the phone and he had just moved into Wichita Falls. He just moved here from DFW with a construction company. And he was like, well, I don't want to pay for friends. I'm like, well, you're not really paying for friends. What you're paying for is the circle and the connections to people that can actually help you get things done. You're not just paying for people that you wave to in the hallway. You're paying for the know-how, the knowledge, and the circle that comes with it. And it's people that can actually help you get things done. You can literally call on them and
They'll help
they'll
you
connect
prevent
to the right people.
mistakes,
Yes.
and they'll take your phone call when you need a quick answer.
Mhm.
You know, it's not like having to call or email somebody and wait a week to get a 15-minute appointment with them. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's why you do those things. You're right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's,
Right.
I mean, there's people that we would have had to work really, really hard to get a connection to. And by being in the coaching programs that we've been in, it just made it a whole lot easier.
Mhm.
And so big proponent of coaching programs.
Thank you, Angel.
You're
And
welcome.
there's some good ones out there.
Absolutely.
Anybody else have any questions for Randy before I let him go? Nope. All right. Well, I appreciate you, Randy. Yes, I will. I'll call you or shoot you some messages tomorrow so we can talk some more off air. But I really appreciate you coming on and blessing me for the second time. Yeah, you did not disappoint, sir.
Well, Pressley, it's really been a privilege. I truly mean that. I get the most out of helping, as I said, to give back to what others have done into my life, my professional life. So to Lori and any of the other listeners, you can find me on my invest-arc.com, and there's a Calendly there. Contact me, let me know. Let's connect.
All right. Thank you, sir. I'll see everybody next Tuesday. All right. See everybody later.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Randy. Bye.